We are live.
Thanks, Joy. Hello, and a very warm welcome to C Conversations Winter Series 2024. I'm Dipti Bhaindarkar, Assistant Professor, and I teach at the school. I'm moderating this winter series titled Technological Practices as Riyaz, along with my colleague Milind Mahale. This conversation series is organized by C-City, which is an outreach program conceived by the School of Environment and Architecture. Okay, sorry. I'm going to have some disturbances. Yeah. Sorry. This conversation series is organized by C-City, which is an outreach program conceived by the School of Environment and Architecture to organize conversations, dialogues in order to engage with the larger architectural, artistic, and cultural discursive practices within and outside the city. C Conversation series was started in 2014. It is conducted fortnightly, and every semester we curate it around a theme which emerges from our current questions and inquiries. For the series of Winter 2024, the conversations are curated around the theme of Riyaz and long durée questions. Riyaz involves a rhythmic engagement with the self, the technological matter, material, as well as the world within which the practice is located. For us at C, Riyaz is a systemic way of practicing a form of art or craft with a long-term commitment to not just learning it, but also advancing the self and the form of practice and process. It involves routine, discipline, engagements, isolation, diligence, play, repetitiveness, and experimentation, through which one arrives at the end of struggles with the long durée questions in mind. The series is organized by C-City and is partly supported by Urban Centro. Urban Centro is conceptualized as a collective space. It presents a node for dialogue, for ideation, deliberation, to carry out research, and to communicate on urban planning, designing, conservation, and sustainable urban development within the city. Today we have with us Afra Eisma. Afra Eisma explores and manifests personal stories through immersive and intimate installations made of textiles, sculptures, ceramics, papier-maché, and sound. Afra's work focuses on emotions as an inner source of strength. What's important to her is to seek ways in which trauma can be a tool of power and of change. The sensitive issues, to look at darker corners of personal experiences, to move the viewer to engage with the subjects at play through seduction and accessibility. Recently, Afra focuses on creating immersive installations in which the viewer has an active role to play. The sanctuary here becomes an extension to the body, and generosity a form of resistance. After Afra's first institutional solo exhibition in 1640, she was invited to make ever since hello, am I audible?
I think there's a small glitch.
Hello.
Yeah, I think she has disconnected. So we'll just come back.
Can you hear me now, Afra?
Yeah.
Yeah, now.
Yeah. Sorry, I think there's some glitch on the internet as well today. Okay. Sorry, I'm just going to continue from where I stopped. So after Afra's first institutional solo exhibition in Netherlands, she was invited to make a commissioned installation in Rotterdam. Ever since then, Afra has been invited to international institutions such as International Art Center, Joan Miró Foundation, the Dhaka Art Summit 2023 in Bangladesh, the Textile Museum in Netherlands, Fry's Museum in Netherlands, the Tetley Leeds in United Kingdom, amongst the many more. Afra lives in Amsterdam and works in Netherlands. Welcome, Afra. I'm going to quickly set up the format for today's session before I hand it over to you, Afra. So Afra will take us through her work for about 40 to 60 minutes, and then we will open up for the question and answers. You can put in your questions in the chat box this time because it's a meeting format, and I'll invite you to put your questions in the chat box. And this session is also streamed live on the YouTube channel. So those who have joined us there can post their questions in the chat, and we will collect it from there. Afra, over to you, and I invite you to start the lecture.
Great. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm very happy to be part of it. And it's also quite special because it's almost 1 year ago that I met Rupali and Prasad at the Dhaka Art Summit, where we were showing kind of next to each other. I have also a lot of photos included in the in the presentation that I made. We are now here in my studio, which I thought was quite nice to maybe show, because as small as this space is, it actually is the space where I made all my works. And I'm sitting here on the edge of the space. I just moved into a bigger studio because it was really sometimes so tight, and when you see the big works that are made here, you can't almost believe how that happened. So I'm gonna do a quick screen share, so we can see the presentation. Let me see how I do that. I click here. Hold on. Share screen. Yes, share. Okay, and then I go view, enter full screen. So this is my latest tapestry that I made. I just put as a reference so you can see how big the tapestry, I put myself next to it. I will later come back to this tapestry, but I just wanted to give a quick view of what I do, because my practice is mostly around textiles. I make these tapestries inside this studio, and ceramics. So I make kind of this immersive, colorful installations that are all handmade, and there's a lot of craft involved in them, and it takes weeks to make one of these. So yeah, I thought it would be nice to start with my first institutional solo presentation, which was in 2020, right before the pandemic hit. And it was at 1646, where it was 3 large rooms behind each other. And I, for the first time, made kind of this installation where you could sit down and place yourself among these kind of alien beings. And the exhibition was titled Feline Whispers, which kind of referred also secretly to this kind of like allyship that I guess a lot of the allyship with women between gossip, and also about my imaginary cat named Larry. So I made a little drawing here of in the middle of the screen that you can see the layout of this exhibition plan. So when you would enter the show, you would first see this work with the ceramic tiles. I think it consists out of like more than 300 hand-painted and handmade tiles that I all fired in this tiny kiln here in my studio. And it depicted kind of the life of Larry, this imaginary cat that I had. And I used this red and blue pattern as if it's almost like a board game. And it looked kind of like a mind map or a map of some sort of place. And then you were welcomed through to the other space that would like welcome you with these open arms that were laying into the other space. And on the wall, there were all these handmade tapestries that kind of formed a feeling of a sort of galaxy. And then inside, you could sit on these alien beings and watch this film. And then on the back side, there was this little room, which actually I don't have great photo documentation of. But for the opening, I made there a love potion, because I thought we have so many ways of experiencing art and exhibitions. and works, but I thought it would be actually very nice that it's also something that we can drink, and that like this fluid comes into our body, and that we as bodies also become part of the work. So I was serving this like special love potion that I made, and it was really nice because they were served in these little bowls with faces in them, and inside I made around, I think, 250 cups, with also Larry the cat inside, and on the outside all these other hand painted drawings. And that night, two of my best friends also fell in love, and they're still together now. So it was, I'm not like, I think it's due to this love potion, but I really like to also play with this feeling of that we can experience this art through also smell or touch or sound. Yeah, so here you can see a little bit better how these cups looked. And then if I go back, you could see from like, I did as an intervention, I cut out this little heart shape on the wooden wall, actually. Normally there's no wall there, but I thought it would be nice to have this little see-through. And then actually, you can't see it from here, but right across from this heart was a little painting hanging that was also on the flyer of this solo exhibition, which was a painting made by my great-grandmother, which is also a painting that I grew up with. It's actually hanging here in my studio, but I'm not sure if like I could show that now. But yeah, it was a very nice detail, because it almost felt also as something that like it couldn't possibly, yeah, like that it was this special connection on like how she worked also with very bright colors. I mean, she wasn't known as an artist at all. She did it as herself, but she really fought for herself as a woman to claim the rights to make a painting in her free time, because that was not, at that time, it wasn't really allowed. And I thought it was very nice to honor this moment in this exhibition. And when my grandma, like the daughter of my great-grandmother, came to the exhibition, she also had to cry, because she knew it would have meant so much for her grandmother to see this painting. And then this exhibition is also specifically special to me, because it was the last exhibition that I could share with my grandma, because she passed away not long after that because of the COVID. But it was very nice to show this special moment. So this exhibition to me has a lot of meaning in terms of love, and also how everything came together, and being able to still share this precious moment with my grandma. And then came the Melly moment. So it was quite a large space, around like 100 square meters. So Sophia, the director of Melly back at that time, came to see my show in 1646, as well as Akansha, the curator of the Kiran Museum, which is later a reason why I got also invited to the Dhaka Art Summit. But when the director of Kunstinstuut Melly, this very big platform in Rotterdam, came, she wanted to give me a commission to make a new work in the space of Melly. And this exhibition stood for more than 2 years, which is crazy long, actually, when you think about it. But it was also due to Corona. So I had a very large space of around 100 square meters, and I could do what I wanted, but they would have liked it if like this work would be somehow inviting for people to also be able to do, because they had a like big program around performance art, if this space would be able to also host performances. And as I was thinking what would fit, I was thinking that I really miss this necessity of touch, but also this feeling that when we, like it was Corona back at the time, and very little people could see stuff, and that sometimes it was almost lonely, both for the work that was on show, but also for the people performing. So I thought it would be so nice to make a work where there's anyway an audience. So even if there's only 3 people allowed to sit down and look at the performance or experience the music or the lecture, that the space felt filled with bodies. And it was also this idea of making these like elongated arms that these otherworldly beings have, so you could wrap yourself around them and cuddle and feel safe. And this space was specifically dedicated, like I also asked Melly, like I would really like to offer this space for especially feminist readings and intimate conversations. So I wanted to create a space where people felt comfortable. And that's why I chose to work with this very large tapestry. And back in this time, I never made such a large tapestry. It was my first large tapestry I ever made, which was around 4 by, I'm not exactly sure what are the measurements, but at least 6 meters, I think. And it's all handmade in my studio. So to make this tapestry, it took us, I worked together with an assistant, but it took us months. And I can also like see like all the little details and thoughts that went in it. And because you're working so long on one work, you can also see that there's this narratives coming and appearing, and that more and more stuff appears on one side and then stays again empty on the other side. So it's also a very beautiful thing, because the technique that I work with is called tufting, and basically you can just draw with a tufting gun the carpet that you want to make. And then you have to fill in these colors. But unlike unlike weaving, for example, where you really work with a specific grid, you have the freedom here to shoot the threads in, but also take them out if you, for example, don't like them. So it's a very playful way of working with textiles. And also I love with this way of working that you can also kind of, because it's quite aggressive, you can also shoot your emotion and the energy that you use to make it. You also feel it back when you look at the work. So this large tapestry was the base of that I wanted to have in the space. And inside these tapestries, there's a lot of details visible. Like, for example, you see this very large green character with on the inside, you see a stomach with a bonfire and 2 figures. And the backbone of this creature consists out of smaller creatures that are holding each other on each other's shoulder. And it's also this idea of like doing things together, and that when we do stuff together, we are stronger. In the space itself, there was a sound playing of a rumbling stomach. So I amplified the sound of a hungry stomach, and then changed the sound so it almost sounded as if there was like kind of this monster there. But also this sound of the stomach is something that we are all very familiar with, and it also felt kind of sweet and warm. And the colors of these tapestries were red and purple because I wanted to create kind of this feeling of being inside a womb, so that you really felt cozy or in a cave or inside something. And then there were these otherworldly beings, and it was also because I didn't want them to look too much like humans, because they were something different. And I guess also when you enter this installation, you also yourself almost become feeling like you're something different. But because it became so alienated, I thought I have to ground the whole installation again. And that's why I made this terracotta, so this earthy clay pots without glaze on top of them, just to ground these cones so it didn't feel like any moment they would fly away. And all these beings have handmade ceramic shoes, and everybody has different nail polish. And also on their clothing, you see little patches that I made with the embroidery machine. So both in a macro level as well as a micro level, there's all these layers of craft. And to me, craft is something so special and beautiful, because it's something that we can all learn and we can teach and we can give to each other as a source of knowledge. And there's all these little stories hidden in all these little threads that we use. And I think to me also, that's why I love textiles, because textiles also has this big history of storytelling. For me, it's the perfect medium to kind of express all these feelings and thoughts that I have. So here we see an example of the ceramic shoes. They all had, I hope my internet is good enough. Well, okay. We had like many different types of shoes, some flat shoes, some high heels with hearts, different weird glazes. But it very nicely because with textiles you want to touch it, you want to lay it, you want to feel it, and it has this very soft touch. Whereas ceramics feel so precious in a way, but also has this very bright colors, like the same like the textiles. But to me, always maybe a bit strange, but I always feel like I want to lick the ceramics. Like I think they're so shiny and polished, and they are way more heavy. So it's, for me, it's a very nice combination to work with these materials that kind of like they tell you a story, they take your attention, and you get kind of like gazed into their beauty. So many times when I start working also, I make sketches, fast sketches with watercolors, but they are never really the full sketch of what in the end it will be. It's just like, for example, after I have a dream or something, I just quickly sketch, but then later it translates all of a sudden to an object like this. Or sometimes it happens that I've been sketching shapes and forms that all of a sudden reappear, and that later on, like I now still come across like drawings that I made 5 years ago and completely forgot about it. And all of a sudden I see the same type of character coming back. So I also love to play with the colors, and also with the watercolors, but it's never really, well, it slightly started to appear lately now in my work as well, and also when I do presentations of it. But before, I never really showed my watercolor sketches. Inside the installation, there were all these like special groups being hosted with a program that Melly organized, which was very nice. So it was this kind of space where a lot of people came together, or when a lecture was being given, or when a school would come and visit, they would all sit down on the carpet and they would discuss the rest of the show or other talks. And in here on top, I like, these are the books of Audre Lorde, which is one of like my big inspiration, together with Bell Hooks, or other feminist writers that I'm really admiring. And I thought it's nice to also show that like my way of reading is also, because of being neurodivergent, I need to repeat sentences, color inside of them, in order to keep my focus and repeat their words. And often their literature is kind of the backbone of the works that I make, the contextual backbone of the works that I make. So there's also other very influential feminist writers like Ursula Le Guin or Octavia Butler that I really love and get very inspired by. Here's an overview of some of the books that are laying around in my studio, and you can also see some of the drawings that I made that later become works. And I didn't have a better picture, but on the bottom left, this purple with red drawing is kind of this big tapestry before it became real. And then we entered the Dhaka Art Summit, which was great because basically what happened was this show in Melly was on for almost like 2 years. So at that time, Diana, the curator of Dhaka Art Summit, saw it, and she told me that she had kind of this like not argument, but like she was reconnecting with a friend in the work, and she said like, wow, I had such a good conversation with my one of my best friends, and we really became closer again. And she said this is a great work for the Dhaka Art Summit, and I think the people in Dhaka would love all these colors. So I was invited to come to the Dhaka Art Summit and to build up and to also change the work again due to a different location, which to me was very exciting because I'd never been to Dhaka, and I was like, oh my God, it's of course also very famous for textiles. So I was very excited to be there. And as I entered the space, what I realized was that the ceiling was very present with my work and the lighting system as well. And I thought, I should, like, it looks great, but there's something missing. And everybody that was looking at the work was like, it looks great here, but there's something missing. And then I said, yes, it's the lighting. And within I don't know, and without thinking, I was like, okay, I have to make lampshades. So 3 days before the opening, I came up with the crazy plan to make these lampshades that we now see hanging here above the installation. And I think this is also only possible at the Dhaka Art Summit because everybody is so friendly and helping out, and there's this possibility of play, which is not always in every institution like this, because I think a lot of institutions, you have to everything has to be already on forehand, and there's little possibility for play. But at the Dhaka Art Summit, literally anything you wanted, it was possible, or we made it possible. So we asked the person that was responsible for the bamboo structures in the building and the build-up to make this kind of this grid that almost looked kind of like a simplified spider web. And then the Samdamis, Nadia, who is kind of the initiator and host of the Dhaka Art Summit, Nadia contacted her tailor and asked if he had maybe some leftover fabrics that he would anyway throw away. And then she picked it up and brought it to us. And then we also went to the old city center to collect more secondhand fabrics. And we cut them in all these little ribbons and then started to weave them together in this kind of grid of the spider web. And we were it was very nice. We first started with 4 people because I was there with my assistant Alejandra. And there was another artist from the university there, Wong, who helped me during the whole build-up. And then slowly more and more students that were helping other artists that were finished or didn't have anything else to do came to help. And it was actually very cozy because we were behind this sheet, because I hung up a sheet in front of this entrance of this room so that we had kind of the privacy. And I would bring little snacks that we got from upstairs. I would bring downstairs. So we were all eating snacks, talking, gossiping, having fun, singing. And all of a sudden, 10 more people were helping me making these lampshades. And we've had so much fun, and they looked fantastic. And when we could hang the first lampshade, we were dancing in the space because we said, oh my God, how did we do it? And everybody was like, wow, this is really, I don't know, it felt like we collected this energy of love that was really special to Dhaka, all in this kind of lampshade. And we were so proud. And also because it was kind of this, became this kind of collaborative work with all the students that were there helping us building up. So everybody also felt very connected to be part of this work, that we made it together. And I think I have also a picture of the lampshades. Here you can see how they are woven together. And then on the outside, some parts were sticking out a little bit more. Others we cut off and trimmed it. But it looked very cozy. And they almost had this kind of spaceship feeling, which I really loved, and very bright colors. And because this work was shown in Melly before, I wanted to also do something different with the clothing they were wearing there, because I thought actually in Dhaka everybody has so much more beautiful bright colored clothing, and I love bright colors. So we went to the secondhand market also to get the fabrics of the lampshades. but also to see if there were some like leftover clothing or accessories that we could put and change. So there were these new green trousers or a bright color color from a shirt, so that the beings also like these otherworldly beings also fit better with the vibe of Dhaka. For me, actually, one of the most beautiful experiences I had as an artist, because it was so special how all these artists from like especially of course local from Dhaka, but also from all over the world came together, and that we were all there feeling really like a family and making such a deep connection, because it was such a important moment, I guess, for all of us, that I'm still like, when I think about it, I'm like, wow, this was crazy. And still I'm in contact with many of them. And then this exhibition traveled to, it's a bit, sorry for the quality of this photo, but then it traveled to the Kiran Museum of Art in Delhi, which was also amazing. So here, of course, the space is way more light and bright and beautiful. So it was not needed to have these big lampshades. So I just focused on just the floor installation, which I also liked, because it was nice to see that this work kept on transforming in every space that it was shown. So at Melly, it had all these tapestries around it, and this sound work that was like this howling stomach. Then in Dhaka, it had these like lampshades. And then here I made also a few touches to the garments and the socks that they were wearing. So every time something very small changed. And it was also beautiful. And the funny thing was that, again, here as well, but I don't have the photo of it, but next door here was again the Belly of the Strange, which was great, because also at the Dhaka Art Summit, we were very close together, which worked so well, because the shape of this, the tapestry kind of resonated with the shape of the Belly of the Strange. And also these kind of bright colors and this place where you can sit down and immerse yourself. And then I thought to show you some other, like after that, so this large work that I made for Melly, I made two different types of works that are similar to it, which is, one of them is this blue one that has a little bit more of an edgy corners, because I wanted it to be as if it was a spit that you put on the floor when you spit. So it looks like kind of this spit or this water drop. And it was very nice because this show was curated by Rafael Fonseca, which is also a close friend of mine. And it was in Guimarães in Portugal. And it was also very much about the mouth. And here I also, like, you can see these alien beings with their ceramic shoes. And it was very nice because in the back we see this wall painting by Lewis and also his paintings, which worked very nicely. So for me, this gave me also very much like new ideas that maybe for the next time I should also maybe work with something coloring the walls or something else to really kind of encapsulate this experience that these works can bring. And again, it was very nice to see how people would interact with it, because of course with the majority of works we are not allowed to sit on them, and artwork is not allowed to be touched. But with this work and with most of my works, it is actually allowed to touch them and to take part in it and to really feel like you belong there. So this work then later traveled to the Joan Miró Foundation in Barcelona, and I made a specific this very large I made this very large tapestry that is almost, I think it's 12 meters or something, on the back wall of the museum. And it has these crawling ants and all these little figures that are running around with these vessels. And I guess that also these vessels, these vases that are like both on the pillars of these alien cones, but also on all my tapestries, they reappear a lot because I see them as a kind of carrier or container for feelings as well. And what I loved about the Miró Foundation was that they made special tours for people that were blind or couldn't see very well. And then they were also allowed to touch my work and to sit there, which made the work also accessible for like audiences that sometimes get left out when it comes to art, because normally they can't experience visual art because it's so much about seeing and not about touching. And I really like this idea of like, wow, you know, when you kind of focus on this idea of touch, or when you can participate with a work, you also open up the accessibility of that. And then I made this is the third one of the 3 large floor works. So this is for my solo exhibition in the Tetley, because they have this very large atrium space, and around it were all these smaller rooms. This was in an old, I think, brewery. And I created again a space where also kids could play and have fun, because I think also the nice thing about this work is that even though there is a lot of heavy topics and feminist thoughts and theory within the work and within my practice, it also allows it to be welcoming to a younger audience, or people that don't read into that at all, which is also fine to me. I think I love that the framework of the work, the contextual framework of the work, can expand, can be and be open to all of these thoughts. And again, I made this very large vessel, which is kind of a starting point for a new series of work that I'm gonna make, which was also the first work that I started with. That was my latest work. And these vessels, they come also, like, I don't know, it's from this image I have of a puzzle that my grandma had when I was young, but I know I don't remember the exact puzzle anymore, and I also don't know if it's actually like this at all, but I had the feeling that it had all these eyes and things growing out of it, and with this kind of 70s colors of purple and orange and these bright colors. But again, inside you see also these characters that reappear also in the tapestry. So in this vessel, you see, for example, this yellow stick with a wheel on top, and also on the bottom, you see the same yellow stick as well. And what I like about that is that by kind of by making all these characters reappear in different works, you kind of give them agency to exist, because they in that way also form a sort of language. Because we've seen again this character with these 2 faces, or in these 2 heads and these long arms. And we see these characters on the floor of the tapestries that are dancing, these yellow 2 characters, also back in the tapestry again. And by doing so, I feel like I formulate an alphabet. And the more you read into the works, the more you see also the reappearing of certain characters, giving them agency and strength. Here you can also see 2 kids that are enjoying the tapestry. So at some point it also became almost a playground, this work, because upstairs there was a real space also for kids to play. So then they saw this and they got really excited, and they were also like playing around with the arms and with the shoes and having a lot of fun. But here you can also kind of see how large one of those tapestries is. And here's some close-up of the details of the aliens and the arms, and also the little castle that are on top, that both look like ruins, but also like castles and like vessels. And sometimes there's a little body part like an ear that is there, or a nose, or a mouth. And I like to also play with, like, they are kind of containers, but you're not sure what are they resembling or where are they from. So they again touch upon these kind of buildings or forms of architecture that are there, but they don't really have a use, and they also don't fully explain what they are. And then as you would walk through this exhibition, you had all these smaller rooms. And in multiple of these rooms, I made, let me check, I made a bit, I will start here. So you would start in these rooms, and there were all these hands hanging out of the wall, coming out of the wall. And it was kind of like, in order to give you the feeling of being taken by the hand, and that those hands again gave a little sneak peek of something else in the next room. So what was very nice is also that in this room with the booby spider, I call it, there was also this sound playing on, which had this kind of dripping sound of a cave, which worked very nicely because already from like the big hall that we were at in the beginning, you could already hear this sound dripping. Like, what is this drip? Where is this drip coming from? And you would be lured inside of it. Then as we get closer, we see this big booby spider that you could walk through. And then you would enter this next room again, where there were these like heart-shaped javelins. And these javelins, I put them here as an example. I made a series of these heart-shaped javelins because for me, they are kind of this symbol or idea that like each of us carry this quiver filled with javelins, with heart-shaped javelins that we can like shoot at causes that we find important. But they're from ceramic, so they are also very fragile. And it means to me, like, if I do activist work or put energy in certain causes, I don't have this energy like as an infinite amount. Like I shoot this arrow and it breaks and there's one less arrow in my quiver. So we should also be careful, like where do we focus on and what we don't focus on. So because I'm also quite in my work, I talk a lot about politics of trauma, of other things. But it's very important to me to also focus that we are aware that this is not an infinite limit of energy that we can use for this, and that it costs also for our body to do this. So that we also see them as something precious and beautiful, and that we guard them for what we think it's useful. And also because I loved this shape of the heart. I loved it because I had the feeling it looks like a little stick that is like a wand. You can make a wish, but also to steer things up, as if you can like steer it in a cup and steer things up. Then there was also the stomach. So there was this room with this stomach. It was kind of dark and like the spotlight's bright on the stomach. Here you would also hear this like large stomach rumbling sound. And the stomach would also be kind of, for me, the symbol of like where all feelings that we have in our body come together, like a knot in the stomach or butterflies in the stomach, or all these feelings that we have, like in a way, if I would visualize them where they are, to me, they are in the stomach. So the stomach, to me, therefore was important because it was this carrier of all these emotions. But also what I loved about it was related to Ursula Guin's idea of the carrier. In the book, in the Carrier Back Stereo Fiction, she talks a lot about the carrier and what it means to carry seeds and like to collect seeds, and that maybe history has way too long just been about like all the pointy sharp objects that were for hunting instead of gathering berries and collecting them together. And the stomach is kind of the first carrier that we have, that's like the container that holds it all, like above anything else, before we even put it in like the one that we have ourselves. So yeah, I like to use this. This work was also part of my solo exhibition in Friese Museum that was called Your Silence Will Not Protect You, which was named after the famous book of Audre Lorde. This is the photo of that. And again, you can see the textile and the fashion that the otherworldly beings, like these alien arms, are carrying are the same as the aliens that are, for example, in these large immersive installations. And then another work that was on view at this solo exhibition in the Tetley in Leeds in the UK were these dresses. They are called warrior garments because they look very sweet and kind, but inside of them there are a lot of political text and hidden messages that often I write when I'm very angry or sad and I want to release all these thoughts that I have that I'm not allowed to say. I wrote them down, and I wrote them on this translucent fabric. And this translucent fabric allowed me to use them within my work without showing too much. So people that understood, that had experienced similar violence or trauma like I did, would understand the topics I would talk about. But also they look like this kind of princessy dresses that you could just wear. So in a way, when, for example, a kid would look at them, they look quite impressive, and they are like with the three of them. So they create kind of this like empowerment feeling, but they also still look cozy and cute, which they are. But in effect, they are also actually like they also entail this like more harsh narrative. And to me, they were also a way in which I could kind of envision myself wearing those in order to create this kind of alter ego that had to deal with this like darker experiences that I've lived. And in order, like, this allowed me also to kind of create this alter ego. So these garments are also my garments when I want to be a warrior and when I want to hold this heart-shaped javelin and fight for equality or all other things. Then this is the outfit that I would wear. And it allows me also that when I like take this outfit off, I can just be myself, and I can also take a distance from that. And they were in the space. It was quite beautiful because we hang them on a system that they were turning around as well. And here you can see this hanging next to these next to this kind of self-portraits, I would say, which are like this. They're called blushy. They are like this ceramic made kind of plates with a self-portrait with blushy cheeks. So for like I blushed quite fast, and I was like sometimes when I blush, I get almost ashamed that I'm blushing, and I was like, why do I get ashamed to be blushing? Why do I get ashamed of my shame? And I think also because shame is often a thing that holds us silent, because shame is something that you can be so ashamed of certain experiences or certain thoughts or things that therefore you don't talk about it. And I wanted to kind of celebrate this shame and show that it's beautiful and that we can just appreciate that. So I made this series of all these little faces that were all blushing, and kind of in them, they became so serene. Then the other work that was also there, which is also something that like now starts to reappear more, which is a bit more playful and light-weighted, I would say, is this puppet theater. So I got very excited about this idea of like, maybe I would love to make a puppet theater with puppetry or make an animation, but also kind of it becomes almost like a skill model. So these are my drawings that I made that I would never show, but I really loved it. And I cut them out and made them 3-dimensional because I just put them on a little stick and then placed them as if they become a puppet theater. I think I have a photo here. And then like, also sorry for the quality of the photo in the back. But what I then did was like scanning some of these drawings and made kind of this backdrop and use them as a wallpaper, which I think, I mean, it's still like, this was very much a tryout for new ways to experiment, because I think it's also very important as an artist to sometimes just try new stuff out, and whether we know whether it works or not, to just do that. So I wanted to do something completely different because everybody knows me for my tapestries, but I also want to still explore what else is there. And I thought, because of also the work that I showed you in Guimarães in Portugal, with like, for example, the work of Lewis that was in the back of it, seeing how like a painting or a mural would work so well, I thought it would be so nice to maybe work with my drawings as a like, and enlarge them way more and work with them as a kind of backdrop of other works to also again create this kind of environment. Because I guess that's something that I really love about the practice that I have now, is that we are really kind of building worlds, and that when you enter an exhibition of mine or a work of mine, that you really have the feeling that you enter a new space where there are like, where you can feel at home, where it's safe for you to be. So this is in the Textile Museum, and here you see also a work that then also reappears a lot in the large-scale tapestry that is also now part of the collection of the Kiran Nadar Museum. And here you can see, for example, also how this stomach looks, and like this backbone of these different figures holding each other with this creature. And then again, these heart-shaped javelins that are coming from the back. So at the moment I'm working a lot around this like new tapestries that I'm making. They're this very large vessels. So this is almost 3.5 meters by, I think, 3 meters or something. And they are kind of these containers of thoughts and the imagination, because I think that the imagination is something so special, because it's a place where we can all come together, where there's no borders that exist, and where we can imagine other things, and like we can imagine otherwise. And to me, the imagination is also a very political space, because it is the place where we can envision change. And this allows us also to think outside of like when we really want to create a world that is more fair, more equal, we need to imagine also new ways in doing so. And these vessels are just like little containers that also reference back to other works and creatures, and little chairs with high heels and ladders, and all these eyes that are like gazing at you. And also when you're looking at the work, you almost become so small. And it's also like, a lot of people told me like, it looks almost like a genie, or like this like secret bottle where you can make a wish. And I was like, yeah, in a way it really does. And these creatures that are coming out. And I thought I just include this because it's a little sketch for another presentation that I might be doing later this year. But this is not like, I can't work so well with 3D, so my gallery does this. But sometimes it's very useful, that especially when I have to work now more and more internationally, I don't always have the luxury to go see the space where I'm exhibiting. So then sometimes it's very nice to see how does the space work with the work I want to show. And here you see this like big vessels that was on this spot, but I'm now thinking of making it even bigger and having these eyes like going even over more walls, kind of like really embracing you as if it's gonna hug you. And then in the bottle, in the bottom left and right, you see these drawings, framed drawings, but I didn't include a picture of it. So, and then the final slide, I think, yes, are these like vessels that I made just before, or maybe these are the actual last works I made this year, or like in 2023 in December. And inside there are like these vessels. Like they first look like a vessel, some of them more than others, because also some of them almost become kind of sculptural, but they also relate to this aesthetic of these like terracotta clay sculptures that were on these alien cones in the large scale tapestries, but also they are on wheels, so they become almost like a vehicle. And inside we see trees that are like carrying all these beings. And then on the left tapestry, for example, you see this greenish tree with all this like different colored animals. But if you look longer, you see in the dark blue that there are two figures kind of embracing each other. So you can see their feet, this dark blue feet, and then these long arms that are kind of embracing each other. So what I also like is that within my work, there's a lot of hidden secrets. Like if you look, the longer you look, the more you will see. And the more you will see, the more you will see the thoughts that went behind it. But also I'm fine if people just see a vessel or whatever. So I love to really play with it. Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Afra. It was very engaging work, and I think what we are missing out on is being able to kind of in person engage with the work there. I think what is wonderful in this work is to see that, you know, here the matter is not just material, the physical material, but it's a lot of emotions, experiences, memories, and dreams and desires which kind of fold into as a technological matter at place. So it's quite engaging. Thank you. To please post in your questions in the chat box. Meanwhile, I'll just begin with the conversation. I mean, I have few questions where what I'm trying to understand is like this work where you're kind of, you know, stitching and weaving these personal narratives and stories. The entire form, the way it kind of comes out, it's very playful, it's colorful,
Yes.
It's like bright, and like you have like you described in your work, they are very deep kind of emotions attached to it, and they are very serious questions which you're trying to kind of talk about. So how difficult is to kind of interweave these two things? Because when it's an emotional, which is a very personal thing to you, and then kind of getting it into a playful manner for someone else who's completely unaware of where this emotion is coming from, right? Because that person, when he or she is going to engage with the work, is going to come from their own thought processes. So how do you kind of work out what is the process through which you start curating your work, and how do you deal with these two very stark things?
So I think also because what I like about my work is that it kind of allows for this hope or this envision of a different world, or like a place where everyone is safe. So that's one of the like main things, I guess, like creating a place where at least I feel very safe, but I think many people also feel very safe. And this therefore allows also for other people to open up. So for example, this conversation that Diana had with a friend, or there was also a beautiful moment in Dhaka where there was this girl that started singing, and all of a sudden she had a whole audience of 20 people, which was maybe something that somewhere else you wouldn't feel so comfortable to do so. So I think I try to create kind of spaces that make people feel so at ease that they can discuss topics that are more heavy. And of course, because in the exhibition text, it kind of contextualizes it more around, for example, feminist influences and trauma and all these kind of like quite intense words, that people can then make a connection, or maybe can ask each other like these questions, like, did you ever experience any of this or that? And also we do, like, I work also a lot with, for example, kids, and I think a lot of kids get taught that for example, being angry, or like also as women we get a lot of taught like being angry is a bad emotion, but also anger is kind of a sort of energy that we have to release from the body, right? So I think also, to me, like, it's good that when we discuss these feelings, like what do you do when you feel angry, that this also helps kind of normalizing having all these feelings bottled up in a way. But sometimes it helps because of like the side program that is kind of contextualizing that work specifically, or the workshops that are given around it with the kids, or also the exhibition text that kind of guides us there. But at least to kind of show that it's acceptable to have these feelings. Yeah.
That's very nice. And I think what is intriguing for me is when you said that, you know, the engagement with the kids, because the soft forms for kids and the way they associate, say the soft toys, which they kind of get first introduced to, have a certain kind of form, right? They are usually happy, and usually they are like a support system. And
exactly,
somewhere that form kind of, you know, is completely kind of rethought when you are engaging with the soft forms, which you are trying to kind of put them through. So that would be a very, it's very interesting to see how the kids kind of engage with this work. And how do they disassociate with their usual connection with soft toys and then coming back to what the new work is trying to tell them. I'm going to call Rupali she wants to have a conversation, so I'm just going to ask her to come in.
Oh.
Meanwhile, we'll gather more.
Oh, I think I'm not able to start the video, but can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just a minute.
Thanks.
That's okay. Yeah, can you try now?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on?
Yes.
Oh. Okay, maybe I have to change to side by side. Okay. Yeah. I can see myself now. So thank you so much, Afra. That was really, really beautiful. And I think what is really lovely in your work is also that, it's, on the one hand, it looks really playful and, but it's in the sense that, I think you say that also in the blurb that you send, it's a world making, right?
Yeah.
It's a world making that you're kind of interested in. And there's this very, you kind of also working with Le Guin's idea of the carrier bag theory and all of that, but also this idea of the ludicrous, right?
Yes.
Like the absurd, and it's all there, so seriously in your face that there's a whole possibility of looking at the world from imagination, from the idea of the ludicrous, and I think that is fascinating. It's like, and it's there in your face. It's not like quietly hiding somewhere. It's like bold and shouting out. It's saying that this world is possible as well, right? So I think that's fascinating. But I think if also because this is this particular series is about technology and it's about Riyaz. What would be really nice is if you can bring in this the methods of working, like for example, you see this beautiful you see this little sort of watercolor, which is it almost seems like this kind of dreamy space that's built, and then suddenly that becomes a kind of a ceramic shoe, right? You can almost see that it's a drawing, like the ceramic shoe itself is an extended drawing, right? It's a kind of spatial drawing, or even this large carpet, and so or also you spoke about this, and maybe very briefly, but maybe if you can elaborate that the method of tufting that you spoke about, right? Like it's also like this kind of large drawing that you're making on site, and it's very different from a systemic way of making tapestry, which is warp and weft and other things. So maybe if you can speak a little bit to that, like what is this kind of technology, and how does this method of working able to produce a different kind of world making? So yeah.
So my work is very intuitive as well. And I think with both the medium of like ceramics as well as the textile tapestry making that I do, it's kind of this three-dimensional drawing actually, because you build up a shape. And with the ceramics, you just build up basically a three-dimensional drawing, which also allows you to kind of react to the thing that you're making on the spot, changing something. So you can make last-minute changes. So it's not a plan that I already have and that I know, okay, this is what needs to be made. Like maybe I do know, okay, I would like to have 5 vessels or 5 shapes, but then still every shape can be different. And I can just change that, which is something that gives me so much freedom because it allows way more playful way of working. Plus, for example, with the ceramics as well, and the tapestries too, they're very labor intensive. So with the ceramics, it's like really listening to the material, really understanding this material. I've been working almost 10 years now with ceramics, so I can really feel the clay and know in what stage the clay is talking to me, how I have to handle it, what it needs. And also I can sometimes listen to the clay, knowing on what stage of, for example, drying it is, or feeling from above it to see if there's like water or cold coming off, or if it's already warm enough to go into the oven. So ceramics to me also taught this kind of thing of being patient, because I was kind of this very like mind that is going everywhere, which is great because it has as a benefit that you have many ideas and you just want to make, but sometimes you need to be kind of a bit more grounded. And the most beautiful thing about ceramics is that it really grounds you, because you are listening to this shape and you are listening to this material that is going through different stages. Like first it's wet and it's like coming just from the earth, and then you make your shape, and then you have to let it dry, and then you fire it, and then if you want to do the glaze, you have to do a new firing. Then with the tapestry, it's also very interesting, because people also tell me, Afra, you're crazy because you're working so much. Like, because one of those tapestries that is on the floor, it takes me weeks to make it. And that's repetitive work, because when I, for example, have to fill in just the red, it's just line after line. I think in each of these tapestries, there's more than multiple kilometers, like hundreds of kilometers of yarn inside of each tapestry. I actually was thinking one day I should actually calculate how much meter of like yarn goes into one tapestry, but it will be at least 100 kilometers. And it's also crazy how much time it costs to make it, and still you do it. So even though like my shoulder sometimes gets tired, or I'm like, why am I doing it? There is this kind of, I don't know, craziness in, or ludicrous, but I don't know what it is, but this thing that I really feel like I have to finish it, I have to make it. And again, this also with the tapestry making, it's the beautiful thing that when you make it, you can change every moment that you want to. So how I work is I have a very large frame that almost looks like a canvas, how you paint. I stretch this special canvas on it that has all this, like, it's kind of in a grid, woven in a grid. But then the tufting gun, I can move circles, I can make little drawings in it, and it just shoots it through this. But if I don't want it anymore, I can just take it out and start all over, which means that I can start on the left side of a tapestry, but also on the bottom, also on the top. And with, for example, weaving, we are really working from a grid. You start on the bottom and then you build it up. You can't already start on the top because you think, oh, I want to have this green sun and sunshine going over, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, at the bottom I want to make like a watermelon with like a cat that is flying it. But this is not possible with other textile mediums. So that's something that I really appreciate about this, because it allows me that I wake up one day and I think, oh, actually it shouldn't be like orange there, but I need more blue, that I can still change this. So in that sense, this is really related to this idea of the Riyaz and like this way of working, because it's very intuitive, it's very rhizomatic, it's very, you can just go from one idea to the other. And also within my practice, I always work with different mediums, because it allows me to work like simultaneously about my ceramics, but also on my tapestries. So then I can do my tapestries when I feel like it. But if I'm like, oh, today I'm tired, or I have all of a sudden a crazy idea about making this great vessel or clay pot, I can also do that. So there's this kind of, I can combine the two, and they also kind of inspire each other, because maybe with the shape that I make on the clay vessel, I'm like, oh, maybe this will be actually working so nicely if I do that also in the tapestry. Yeah,
fantastic. I think it's really amazing that I mean, in some ways you also bring a different dimension to Riyaz, because otherwise you kind of, in the artisanal, you also see Riyaz as repetitive, Riyaz as systemic, but you bring in this kind of idea of craziness as well into Riyaz.
Yeah.
So I think
totally.
that's really fantastic. So thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go off and I'll let others come in.
Yeah, I'm just going to invite Milind. The question.
Hello. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
What I wanted to ask is, as you said, your work is not only to view but to interact with, to cuddle with, to take it very close, lie down with it, spend time with it, and all those things. Generally, you said it doesn't permit it in a visual art field, not to touch, just to see kind of a thing. So and then you said it's the users becomes the part of your artwork, so to say, because they are always inhabiting and using it and interacting with it. So my question was then, how does, because you said it all comes from the very personal emotion, personal stories, and very, very personal space, and then the user are completely different and they are inhabiting this and then interacting with it. So how does these users, or so to say, the people who inhabit your artwork, influence your next artwork? Or is there any way you can, because you showed this work maybe 3 times and you showed there is a small changes that keeps happening, and how much is the part of the users in that small changes or next stage that happens? Yeah.
Totally. It's very interesting because also it really depends on what setting it is that like the interaction changes. So for example, with the Dhaka Art Summit, it generated almost over 500,000 visitors that came in like less than 11 days. And it was very nice to see because there the work became kind of this setting for a date. And there were people actually going on a date inside the work, which was something so beautiful. So that also gives me kind of ideas like what else could I facilitate to maybe make this kind of artwork that all of a sudden becomes this like meeting point where we can see each other. So and also I was thinking, how can I do other works that are kind of interactive, or like now I'm making, for example, I'm busy for a new show where we have a group show with different artists. And I'm gonna make probably bean bags with a lot of arms that you can wrap yourself around it while you're looking at this very sensitive video from another artist. But I think always it's very like it's completely true what you say, because it's also very inspiring to see what is it that kind of triggers this viewers that they get excited about, or what is working, or what can be improved. And I realized, for example, it's not, of course, the most clever idea of myself to have this ceramic fragile shoes at the alien feet, because a lot of like kids are playing with it, or like also, it sometimes breaks. But I also like it because it kind of, it's something that we all have to be respectful of each other. So because it's their feet that all of a sudden is fragile, you can also see that people all of a sudden become more like sensitive to the rest of their beings. So I like to see these reactions also to kind of like get inspired from that and see like, okay, what are the next steps that I could take, or can I make different spaces that like welcome people in different ways? So yeah, totally. It does really inspire me to see at each of those spaces to see how the interaction is.
Thanks, Afra. I'll take I'll take up the next question. I'm going to invite Prasad Khanolkar.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hello. Yes.
Hi. No, thanks actually, for sharing the work. It's kind of interesting to me because, firstly is sort of the setup in which you are talking about the work, which, the workshop that you are in, and the idea that the workshop in some sense can't contain the amount of work that you're producing, but which also sort of, I felt sort of feeds into your work where the vessels and also is not able to hold. I mean, it requires a different kind of a language, in terms of also other worldly beings that need to speak about it. I was wondering if you could, and something that would be useful for me, but also our students is if you could speak a bit about this, this idea of this movement from your workshop to the exhibition, particularly in terms of a lot of the work is, drawing on literature, but your own memories, as Rupali and Dipti were pointing about. So if you could, the idea of technium, which is also to give, experience and phenomenon a language, right? Through the materials that you've been talking about. So if you could just, maybe tell us a bit about, it'll be helpful for me particularly, if you could tell us what is that process of translation where technology sort of helps you, give it, like, even if it's
Prasad, you're breaking. We can't hear you. Maybe.
or sort of organized, do you keep diary process, like from the work room where you...
Oh, I can't hear.
Yeah, I've just informed him. I think his connection is, I think is disconnected.
Oh.
Ah,
But the question is about what is like how to work from an idea that is in the mind till the exhibition space. Yes, okay.
Sorry, not, yeah, in the sense of if you could talk about your process, which is, do you keep a diary for thoughts, for, what are the details of, like, because the idea is think about technology as this everyday process, right? Which you do talk about in terms of the idea of intuition and improvisation. But if you could just, talk us through like this, what the workshop, like what is your day like in a workshop, and how does that sort of move to the exhibition? Yeah.
So I like a lot of times an idea start with like either just a visual idea that I have or like an urge that I feel into making, which is not always easy to kind of formulate it in very clear way. But also because what I do is I often reuse elements from previous installations. So sometimes I also look, what is there? What do I have? And I almost see also my like exhibitions that I have like within my practice, like just as for me as an artist, like not that it's written about it, but for me as an artist, I see them sometimes as like, how you have a film scene, and all of a sudden this is like the main character, and then there's this other things that are more like I don't know how do you say it, like, but not the main character. And then in a new exhibition setting, all of a sudden the other work becomes main character. And then around that exists something new, or kind of formulates or more speaks like what this character actually means. So I do really see these works as kind of beings as well. And when I start working on a show, I look at the space, of course, because the space also changes a lot about the feeling. And I also think about the mindset that I'm busy with at that time. And these things kind of form maybe the starting points of an exhibition, but sometimes it's also just this urge of wanting to make something completely new, or wanting to make that is like when I think about work that has to be on the floor, I think instantly about a carpet. But maybe for the next exhibition, because I want to not just make a big carpet with these cones, I will think about how can I change that architectural structure of, for example, these alien beings, and make it into a different work, but still having the same kind of elements that I like with this work, which is that people can sit down and lay down and relax. And that's why, for example, now I'm thinking about these bean bags with these multiple arms. So it's also like reflecting back on older works and seeing what is there that I would like to improve or change. Maybe not even improving, but just like, what is a different way of thinking about this, and really challenging the mind. And then, for example, with this work, I think ideas that we have, like to me, ideas we have about works, about thoughts, about anything, they are also kind of like, I see them as our imaginary, like I see them as my imaginary cat. Like I go to bed with them, I wake up with them, I take them in the shower, I take them on the bike, I keep on thinking on them. So these ideas keep on growing, and I keep giving kind of love to these ideas. And sometimes I put them again in a cabinet, and all of a sudden, and they are like inside a little drawing, and all of a sudden I open this cabinet and I see this little drawing. I think, oh wow, there was this idea. And then I keep on fantasizing about it, giving it love, till at some point I feel like, hey, it's ready to be really made. So I really think that, to me, like giving this time and effort and love to ideas is very important. And then when I start the day, I have quite a very strict routine. So I always wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning. And then at 8:45, I take the public transport to go to my studio in The Hague. And then I'm here at 10:10. And then I drink a coffee. And then at 10:30, we start working. And then after, my assistant is here as well. And then first we make often a plan of the day. What are we going to do? What do we need to be finished? What are the shows that we are having? And then we make kind of this idea. But most of the time, already before, I have kind of these drawings that I'm like, I think I want to make this tapestry for this show, and I want to start with this ceramic thing for that show. And then these are the first anchors of each show. And then from there grows a whole new world. Yeah, I hope it answers a bit.
Prasad, you're on mute.
Thank you. So no, I can't unmute myself. No, I had a follow-up question, which is, just sort of building on the artwork that you've, or the work that you've been showing, that it sort of has this the idea of scale, right? I mean, if you just look at the scene right now, which is, the things about very minute details that, even if it's like you're saying that the work is sort of growing in size, there's a lot of detailing within it that still sort of continues. And if you can just, tell us a bit about this, jumping of scales, right? Which is like really small weaves, the shiny shoes, but also this large form of carpet, this, and it requires sort of a process of thinking. So if you could tell us a bit about that.
Yeah. So I think also what I like about this like very large installation is that it kind of makes the human a little bit smaller, because in so many ways we all are always the center of everything. So also with my work, I kind of wanted to like give space to this imagination where you almost feel as human. Either you almost don't feel as human, you also feel like an otherworldly being, but also you feel like a little guest within the work. And I like that because it's also important to me. And I think also the size allows it to really immerse yourself into this world and into this world building, and that we see all these little elements that are part of it. And I always love when a viewer that stays longer in a work gets rewarded for that. So that's why I also like to play with these small details, that the longer you look, the more time you spend, the more acquaintance you get with the work, the more you will even see. So there's all these little hidden things inside of it, or like repetitions that like maybe on first hand you don't see, but all of a sudden when you move a leg, you see a new drawing on the tapestry that is actually hidden behind one of the alien's feet. So I love to play also with that as well. And I think it's also to do with this fascination for, like, I don't know, craft in a way, that there's all these little details that I like to add. And maybe also this kind of maniac way of working, because there's so much time spent on each installation, which is kind of, you know, sometimes I work myself and I'm like, people are like, whoa, Afra, like, do you like sleep or do you eat enough because you're just working? But I also need that in order to kind of like, for me, it's a necessity to work. And I also love it. Like, it makes me happy. It gives me so much peace of mind. So yeah. And then another thing is, like, if I'm completely honest, with the tapestry making, it's easier to actually work larger because the gun is quite aggressive, because you have to shoot the thread. So the smaller you go, the more clumsy it gets. It's more difficult. So I also try to make smaller works, but I felt like it was missing, like it didn't work with this material as well as when I make it larger. So if I'm very honest, it's also very much that this material really leans itself to be a little bit more big, because I can make then these movements that feel way more organic and can show all this stuff that I wanted to show inside of them. Whereas if it would be way smaller, I would have to use a different technique, because then this is not the best thing, or it would be way less fun.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot. No, that was about it. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks, Prasad.
Thanks,
We have one more question. The question is from Rachit Somani. He wants to ask, for an artwork emerging from such a personal collection of narratives, emotions, texts, and memories, I'm curious about the narrative that is built when you set it up as an exhibition for a public viewing with a series of subjective eyes. Is there a hope of the personal memories emerging, or does this become an evocative experience where the burden of the takeaway is completely left on the beholder?
So I think for me, it's most important that, did you finish, or I should? Okay. So for me, it's most important that, I guess, like, anyone is welcome to see whatever they want, but at least I want my work to hold space for those people that need it, to see that they're not by themselves. So even though everyone is as welcome to see anything in the work and also just enjoy its playfulness, because it definitely is, but that for sure that anyone experienced similar things as I did can also see that and open up about it and feel like, hey, I'm not by myself. There's more people like this. It's not crazy. It's not bad. And then maybe it gives them it gives them a little bit courage to speak out about that to other people around them. So I would say that that's most important to me. But also, I'm really fine, like, if I see kids just playing or pulling these arms, I'm also very happy to see that, you know, like, I like that as well. I think that's the nice thing about like this idea of world building, that we bring hope, that we do our best to create places where we feel safe and where we can discuss these things. So there's not like a wrong or like a right way of doing so.
There are currently no more questions here. I'm just going to take a moment to see the chat box. Yeah, we'll just wait for Afra to come back.
Yeah, I just realized that I didn't plug my computer in the power.
No, that's good. So currently we do not have any more questions, but Afra, I think what was very interesting was to kind of see this deep engagement and the entire process of, and like you said, you know, you do not start from like planning the whole thing, but you you could start from any corner, and then it starts kind of building up with the stories and the narratives which you have in your mind. I think that's very it's very interesting to see the incremental pattern in which kind of it comes up, and then of course being kept in open for the public to kind of interact with it, and looking at the kids kind of cuddle within it, or even if you have senior people who kind of come in and kind of, understand the nuances of the details and maybe the actual narrative or the personal narratives to some extent. I think it's very wonderful to kind of have so many eyes making their own sense and building their own worlds and fantasies around the work. So it leaves it open to those possibilities. And I think that's very wonderful to kind of, for the work to do. So thank you, Afra. I think it was wonderful having you with us. Thank you for spending time. And we hope to meet you in person soon sometime at the school, and maybe visit one of your works sometime soon. With this, I think I will close this conversation. The next conversation for C-Series is going to be in person in school with Sagarika Suri on 23rd of February. So we'll invite everyone to come to school, and those who cannot come in person, please join us online on our YouTube live. With that, I thank Afra for coming in, and thank you all for staying with us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.